What is up, my friends? This is Coffee and Code number 23, and I'm your host, Dan Vega. This is a video version of my newsletter that goes out every Sunday morning, and it's really just meant to talk about what I was up to the previous week, what I might get into this week, and some interesting things that I found around the web. So, I have my cup of coffee here in my new I Am Your Father cup that I got for Christmas. So if you want to, go ahead and grab your cup of coffee or your favorite beverage. Nobody's watching, and we'll go ahead and get through this in the time it takes to finish your drink. All right, so before we get into the contents of this week's newsletter, I just want to remind you that if you are not already subscribed, you can head over to danvega.dev, and right here on the homepage, you can sign up. Again, this goes out every Sunday morning, and that's pretty much all I send out, or maybe a few other emails and just stuff that I'm into, but you won't get a lot of spam or anything in this newsletter. It's just kind of straight to the point. So once you've signed up, you should get an email on Sunday morning with the newsletter. And with that, we're going to look at the web version of this week's newsletter, which is, again, Coffee and Code number 23. So first off, this is the first week that I've kind of introduced a graphic as part of the newsletter. So this is kind of the graphic I'm going forward with. I do know there's a typo in here. I got to fix that. But this is a graphic that I'm using across YouTube as well, and we'll talk more about this as we get into it. So it was another busy week for me, finally getting back into the swing of things and feeling like it's actually 2020. I got really busy towards the end of 2019 and into the new year with the conference Code Mash, and that really just kind of threw me off in a loop. It was a great conference, but I just kind of feel like I'm getting back into the swing of things, which is really nice. So the first thing that I was able to work on this week was a Vue 3 Fragments video for YouTube. If you go ahead and click this link here, it'll take you over to YouTube and you can watch the video. But the gist of it is we basically get into a new feature in Vue called Fragments. And Fragments are going to fix a small little issue that happened in Vue 2 where you could only have one root node. So think of it inside your template text. If you had, say, an H1 header with the title, you could no longer put something below that H1. If you wanted to, you had to start wrapping all of that content in another div. And it wasn't very semantic, and it just always kind of felt hackish. So this was a very welcomed addition to Vue 3. Again, nothing big. It's not going to get a lot of press like the other Vue 3 features, like, say, the composition API. But I think it was a really good one, and I did a little video on it, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. So with that came some thumbnail design. One thing that really stresses me out when I go to create YouTube videos, especially YouTube videos, is thumbnail design. I get stressed out about this because I know that it's such a big deal on YouTube, especially when you're a small channel like I am, for getting new people to check out your videos. And I am a membership to Adobe Stock, which is really great because that's where I get a lot of like cool graphics and stuff, and I use that across numerous projects. So I really like that, but I just really had a hard. I'm not a designer. I think at the end of the day I can come up with something that looks pretty clean and nice, but I'm not a designer. And so that aspect of it just really became time consuming and stressful. And so what I wanted to do was come up with some type of theme that I could switch between, like when I'm talking about different subjects. So I do a lot of Vue, I'll do some Java, I'll do some Spring Boot. Here's an example of a Visual Studio Code. These are all like different topics that I'll talk on, but I figured I could come up with a theme and just switch out a few elements on every video. And so you'll notice here in the Vue one, I have a different color scheme. I'm basing it off of the Vue logo with the blues and the greens. And I have my title, a subtitle, my website address, and then the logo. And so we're doing the same thing here with Grammarly, using the Visual Studio Code icon. I'm actually using the Grammarly extension page within Visual Studio Code as like that backdrop. And that's how I kind of came up with that theme. So I've seen a lot of other developers in the YouTube space do something like this. And this is what I want to get into, because I just don't have the time to create unique ones for every single video. And I know that in YouTube, one of the big things is like showing your face. And again, it's just time consuming to sit here and take pictures of myself, run them through Lightroom. And I get it. I mean, I know why a lot of the big YouTubers out there are successful and they do that stuff. And I just have to find a balance, because if I did that, I would get one video out a month, and that's just not going to work for me. So let me know what you think of the new style, minus the typo there. I'm going to kind of stick with that for a little while, see how it goes. One thing I might get rid of right away is this subtitle and try to make this text bigger, because I know it's not like the greatest on smaller screens. So that's one thing I may play with. All right, moving on. So one other thing I did this week was bought a new domain name. So I've been preaching a lot on Twitter lately that, and I am 100% at fault of this myself, and that's why I've preached it, and I try telling people other this, is that you can watch all the courses you can find, you can read all the articles you can read, but you're not going to really learn unless you're doing stuff. And while I am working on stuff at work, they're all on a certain level of what I'm doing. Everything that I kind of work on at work is in a similar vein and very beginner focused. So I need to constantly be working on other things to kind of stay up to date. And so I've been thinking of some projects that I can work on. I've done a couple that you'll start to see on this channel in a little bit. But another one I thought of was the ability to help people who want to interview for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and mainly Vue positions. So I bought a new domain name. I'm the king of buying domain names and sitting on them. But I thought of a clever one. Oh, and I actually have a typo there. I don't know why it says that, but it's actually interview, VUE.dev. I don't know why I have .com there. I bought .dev because I think .com was taken. Let's actually look. So you'll see probably a couple other in here. These are ones that I've sat on as well. Let's look this up. Interview.com. Okay, so interview.com is already registered. That's why I didn't end up getting that one. So I got interview.com, .dev, and my thought behind this was that we would create some type of application where we can put questions like in a GitHub repository and then just read them straight from there. And so the app would kind of ask the question. It's more of like a flashcard type of thing, where somebody could self-study, look at the question, and then if they needed to see an explanation or an answer, we could flip over and see an answer. And not only can we just do a text-based answer, but because we're storing all this in GitHub, we could pull in some code into some like markdown blocks and things like that. So I'm still not sure what this looks like, but I bought this week and I really want to try and do something with that. So if you have any ideas on that or any interest in helping out, please let me know. Okay, so that's it for what I was up to this previous week. What I'm up to this week, not sure. I don't know. I got a busy weekend next weekend, and some news that I'll share with you next weekend, which is pretty exciting. So make sure you're subscribed. I will talk about that in next week's newsletter. But not a lot. I'm hoping to get another 2 videos out this week, maybe including this one. Man, it'd be really nice if I could start pumping out 3 videos a week. And I think I've got a good setup here in the office to where I can actually do that. So stay tuned on that. So that's this week. Now let's talk about things that I've found around the web and that I find interesting. So I like to break these up, if you're new to the newsletter, into different sections, whether it's articles, videos, podcasts, books, courses, Again, I'm a big consumer of knowledge. I love to learn, almost to a fault, as I just said. Putting that into practice is something I need to do a little bit better at, but I'm just going to share with you a couple things that I found interesting, and hopefully you find them interesting as well. So first up, Fritz is leaving the Vue core team. This was a pretty big shock because Chris has been around as long as I can remember, way before I even got into Vue. But he cited in here that for many reasons, most of them personal, it's hard for him to kind of commit to all the work that needs to be done on the Vue core team and all the things that he needs to do in his day-to-day operations. And I get it, man. As somebody who just has one daughter, one child at home, and a wife, like I find it, harder and harder to find time to get to these things, anything outside of work. So I get it. Chris has really been an integral part of why Vue is so great. If you don't know, Chris is responsible for a large amount of the documentation. And I think when people get into Vue, that's one of the first things they noticed. So Chris, we tip your hat to you and wish you the best of luck. And it was really nice the way you kind of explained this here. So if you want to get a chance, go ahead and read through this. IntelliJ IDEA 2020.1 early access program has been released. So I still use Visual Studio Code a lot, but I'm still in IntelliJ. I like it's still for Java development. You can't beat it. It is a really, really fantastic IDE. So I would encourage you to read through the release notes here. One of the things that really stuck out to me right away, and especially for beginners, is this JDK. You can download the JDK right from the IDE, which is super cool. Like, hey, this really helps out beginners too. If they don't have a JDK installed and they want to fire up a Java project, I could see walking someone through this using this feature and really simplifying that tutorial. So huge shout out to the IntelliJ team for all the features here in 2020.1. It looks exciting. I got it installed myself. And if you're interested in me going through a video and showing off some of that, let me know. Okay, so that's it for articles. A couple videos. The Todd Cast, episode 2. So Todd Sharp is a good friend of mine. He really started doing more video towards the end of last year and into this year. And he created something called the Todd Cast, which is, a play on podcast, which I really love. Like, I love the name of it, and I love the just raw sitting down with Todd, listening to what he's been up to that week. And so that's kind of where I got the idea, like, let me do a video version of my newsletter, because that's kind of what my newsletter has been for the last, 23 weeks now, or 24 weeks. So this episode, Todd does a lot of work with IoT devices. And so if you're into that stuff, he talks about a RetroPie, which he basically set up to run a bunch of emulators for older games like Sega Genesis, which is really cool. And I looked it up, and it's one of those things that I've always wanted to get into. So I may take Todd up on that and follow some of his instructions and get that going myself. He also talked about Elementary OS, which is a Linux flavor, which I never knew about until that. So yeah, that looked really cool. And just Todd's a great guy. And so if you never have seen anything by him, go ahead and check out the Todd Cast, episode 2. JavaScript and Friends. There is a Gridsome introduction by Ray Camden. And so Gridsome is what powers my website. It is a static site generator written in Vue, and it is really awesome. I would compare it to something like Gatsby. Gatsby may be a little more full-featured and been around a little bit longer, but it's a great static site generator, really great for like marketing websites, blogs, portfolios, personal websites, that kind of thing. And so Ray did a nice introduction to that, and there's a video recording of that, so go ahead and check that out. Podcasts. I'm just going to touch on these really quickly. So Waveform is the MKBHD podcast that is pretty new, but really awesome. And in this episode, they took a deep dive into how they produce their videos over on the MKBHD channel, which has now 10 million plus subscribers. And they do such a great job, just a phenomenal job at their videos. And so if you really want to hear kind of some behind the scenes stuff and how they produce their videos, this is a really good episode for you. All right, Syntax FM, Scott Tolinsky and Wes Boss, tech to watch in 2020. Really good episode on things that you can watch for in 2020. Not much to say else about that, but go ahead and check that out. And the Ladybug podcast, 20 design tips for developers in 2020. As a developer, I need as many design tips as I can get. So there are some really, really great tips in this episode. So if you get a chance, go ahead and check that one out. Courses. So a couple of them. Udacity, becoming a cloud developer. So I'm actually registered for this at work, and I'm thinking of enrolling in it. I'm just making sure that I have enough time to commit to it. It is an estimated 4-month course that you should be committing 10 hours a week to. And 10 hours a week doesn't sound like a lot, but when you already have a full-time job and a family and still struggling to find a couple hours a week to put together videos like this, I mean, that is a commitment. So I am curious, anyone out there who has taken this course, is it 10 hours a week? Could I get by on a few less, maybe, half of that? And just curious on your thoughts. So I'm really curious to see if anybody out there has taken this course. It looks really interesting. The syllabus looks great. I'm really excited about it because you build some really cool projects in there. So thinking about taking that course. I'm pre-approved for it at work. So let me know what you think. View Mastery unit testing. So this one is going to be a fun one. I wonder if this is going to auto play on me. It is. Let me pause it. And so this is from the team over at View Mastery. Adam Jar, who you see there, is recording this course. And this is based on some articles that I had written for View Mastery. There's a 3-part series over on their blog. So if we go over to the blog and check out the very first one, A Beginner's Guide to Unit Testing in Vue. Some of this course is built on top of those articles, and then obviously a whole bunch more. And Adam knows his stuff like nobody and is a great teacher. So if you're interested in learning more about unit testing in Vue, check out the articles that I wrote for View Mastery, as well as their new course, Unit Testing in Vue. The books. I'm reading, and I say reading, I'm listening on Audible to a new book called The Unicorn Project. And it's really about the business processes that kind of hold up developers in very large companies and how we kind of get in our own way in things. And I'm still pretty early on. I think I'm 7-8 chapters in. But it's just a really interesting book, especially anyone who's worked in a larger corporation has probably felt the sting of some of this stuff. So, if you're a developer, QA, project manager, anywhere in between and around tech, you might really find this book interesting. So go ahead and check that out. Then I just have a few projects that I wanted to mention. Vue Screencasts is officially launched. I've been watching the progress over on Twitter, but he has launched this website officially, and there's just a ton of really great videos on here on Vue, and I think all of them are free. I know he has some plans to do some pro courses, but he has a ton of really great screencasts here. So if you're into that, go ahead and check that out. Channels Slack, which I saw on Product Hunt, I believe. Really cool little website here to find YouTubers. And so you can browse a bunch of categories. So if I went into web development, it will go ahead and filter down, and you can see some of the web developers with YouTube channels. Now it's very early on, so there isn't a ton here, but if this grows, I could see this being a very helpful resource. Table Plus, I'm always on the lookout for a good database editor that works across multiple database vendors. And you can see the list there with more coming soon. This seems like a really great product. I've only had a chance to play with it for maybe 20 minutes one day, but I really like it. It's for Mac and Windows, so go ahead and check that out. Finally, MirageJS. So this is an API mocking library for front-end developers, and this has support for things like Vue and React and I think Angular. I'm not sure. But what it allows you to do is really just create a server that you can basically test on. And I know at work, at bootcamp, we use a mock API for this, and it kind of gets messy at times. So I am definitely going to look into this as maybe replacing that. Outside of just looking at this homepage, I haven't really done anything with it yet. So this is going to be on my large list of things to do to go ahead and check out, because I think it looks like it's very promising and could really fix a problem that we have. So I will go ahead and check this out, and when I have some thoughts on it, I'll go ahead and share it with you guys. So I think that is it. I'm gonna take one more sip of my coffee here. That is the first episode and video version of Coffee and Code. Again, this is Coffee and Code number 23. If you're interested, you can head over to danvega.dev, sign up for the newsletter. That newsletter goes out every Sunday morning. Hopefully the video version of this will go out every Monday morning. Really just depends on if you guys like it. If people are watching it, I will definitely do this. But I don't want to waste your time and don't want to waste my time. So I would love to know what you think. Leave me some comments below. Give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see some other content. I have a ton of content here on the channel that goes over a wide variety of web development, programming, discussions, hopefully some product reviews here in the near future. Just a lot of content around software development. So if that interests you, consider subscribing. So I think we will leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed your coffee or whatever beverage you decided to drink this morning or whenever you're watching this. So until next time, and as always, happy coding, friends.